Yeah, the concept is analog marketing in a digital world, and I changed the title at the last minute to Marketing in the New Millennium, and I'll explain that in just a couple of seconds. But first, I'll introduce myself. My name is Derek Pomaville. I'm a certified master inspector. I'm CEO of High Tech Home Inspections and Training, and I've been a home inspector, not very long, only about 32 years since 1994. But I've also been teaching home inspectors across the U.S. and into Canada since about 2003. And of course, High Tech Home Inspection Training is an InterNACHI partner school. And before I did inspections, my background included a lot of different stuff. It included advertising, executive management, marketing, restaurant management, insurance, and even car sales. So I've lived both sides of what works and what doesn't in the real world business development area. And today what we're going to be talking about, it isn't just theory. It's a practical, repeatable way to grow your inspection business by combining what the internet does well with what only people can do well, and that's build trust. So we called it Marketing in the New Millennium, and the key word here really is marketing. Because in the new millennium, and we expect everything to be digital, we live in a very visual society, I guess you could say. We expect to see things. In fact, I read somewhere recently that we get bombarded with, between phones and internet and TV and radio and billboards and stuff, about 10,000 ads per day. So we're kind of accustomed to just seeing everything out there in front of us, and we just kind of pick and choose what we want. And I want to talk about why it's so different for home inspectors. Because a lot of us spend money on advertising and we wonder why the phone doesn't ring the way we expect. And the big idea that we're going to explore here today is that consistent and rapid growth comes from relationships. Those relationships are supported by online presence, not replaced by it. And by the end, you'll have a clear strategy that you can apply this week. How to position yourself, who to focus on, and which activities actually move the needle. So here's where we're headed. We're going to blend the internet and the face-to-face marketing, and we're going to clarify 3 distinctions that change everything: marketing versus advertising, service versus retail, and internet versus in-person marketing. Then we're going to talk about relationship building, and that's because inspectors don't win just by being good. We win by being trusted. And we'll also discuss the big 3 activities that build referral momentum, and we'll finish with follow-up systems and some very important suggested rating. And if nothing else, I want everyone to leave here today with a plan that they can execute and start putting to work in their business right away. Now, we have to start right here, okay? Our industry as home inspectors is not retail. And I know most of us know that, but early in my career, I accidentally tried to sell the home inspection service like it is retail, as if the buyer could see what they're buying. And I quickly learned how services sell very differently, especially when you consider our target audience. And when we understand that services sell differently than retail, we can understand or improve our messaging systems. We can improve our conversations. And as a result, our conversion rate improves. And this is one of those knowing the difference makes the difference moments. Because services are intangible. They're harder to sell, and it's because the buyer can't hold the home inspection. They can't try it on. They can't compare it side by side to something else. There's nothing tangible to grab onto. And as every inspector knows, there are tons of variables with the home inspection because every house is different, every agent is different, every buyer is different. So uncertainty is really high in our industry. And the evidence of whether we did a good job or not doesn't show up until after the inspection, after the house closes. So the value is proven when the report saves the client from a costly repair or an unsafe condition. That's the real value of what we do. In retail, well, it's the exact opposite. It's tangible. It's demonstrative. There's fewer variables. And people interact with evidence of a great product before they buy because they can walk into a store, pick it up off the rack, and take a look at it. And when choosing a home inspector, though, buyers don't have this kind of luxury. So in a service business, trust, credibility, and clarity are the product. And that's what home inspectors sell. In fact, it's one of the most powerful phrases I use in my marketing materials when I'm speaking to agents. I use this all the time. I tell them, especially when I'm doing an office presentation, I tell them very directly, you're selling a tangible product, brick, mortar, wood, and metal. We provide peace of mind. And that always raises a couple of eyebrows in the room when I say it. In fact, let me show you a couple of quotes regarding some modern retail philosophies. So, you walk into a retail store, whatever it is, and if there's a sense of entertainment and excitement and electricity, you just want to be there. Now, that's a quote from Howard Schultz. He's the former CEO of Starbucks. It nails retail with some really key terms: entertainment, excitement, and energy. People want to be there. Okay, that works because retail can create an experience around a tangible product. But in inspections, our clients excited in a very different way. And in fact, most of the time their excitement is nervous tension. And so our version of electricity, it isn't hype, it's confidence. It's calm competence, and it's, I know what I'm doing and I'm going to take care of you, that makes the client feel good about having chosen you. And that's the service business version of a great customer experience. So here's another one. This one is really brutal, but it's very true. It's from Elon Musk. Your product or service needs to be much better than theirs. It can't be a little bit better. You're always going to buy the trusted brand unless there's a big difference. So people buy the trusted brand unless there's a big difference. Now, in inspections, most consumers assume inspectors are similar. And I think we all know that's just not true. What we do is similar, but we all go about it in a very different way. So they choose the name they can trust. And often, it's the one that their agent trusts. That means that our job is to become the trusted brand in our market. Not by yelling louder, not by showcasing our vast technical skills, but by consistently demonstrating in a marketing situation confidence, reliability, and a clean client experience. Trust is a strategic asset for home inspectors. Okay? It's also the same for realtors. They don't like to refer anybody that they don't know, like, and trust right off the bat. And we have to build it, we have to build that trust, and we have to build it very deliberately and very precisely. So let's tackle another point. Let's talk about marketing versus advertising. Now, these often get used by small businesses like they're the same thing, but they're so different. If you treat marketing like advertising, you're probably going to waste a lot of time and a lot of money because they're just not the same thing. In fact, using marketing as though it were advertising is like trying to grow a friendship by handing somebody a business card and then walking away. You've shared information, sure, but you haven't made a connection. You haven't built any trust. There's no common ground. It's just a piece of paper with some basic information on it. So successful home inspectors make effective use of both marketing and advertising. And like we said before, knowing the difference makes the difference. So let's take a look at that. Advertising is generally static and impersonal. Now, I know that there's probably some folks out there disagreeing with me on this one, but yeah, I know, but I see all these ads and they're colorful and they're really cool people and they really, draw me in, stuff like that. Well, that's true. But it's still impersonal because you're just staring at a screen. And you're watching somebody on a pre-recorded medium where, everything that they say is all planned out, but they're not making a connection with you. So that's what makes it impersonal. And it costs a lot of money. Advertising, I don't know if any of you are spending any money on Google ads, but I don't spend money on Google ads for my home inspection business, but we do spend money on Google ads for the school to get students. And it's expensive, and if you're not spending it wisely and you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to throw a lot of money away. It took me a few months to learn that I really wasn't capable of doing the whole Google Ads campaign myself, and I recently had to hire somebody to take it over. Our business is growing. I don't have time to keep learning, and it seems like they keep changing the rules every couple of months. So it can be hard to target a precise audience without a much longer learning curve and lots of extra skills, which, I was doing that myself for a few months, but then I decided, this isn't working. I just don't have enough time, and our numbers seem to be going down, so I'm headed in the wrong direction. I'm not keeping up on all the differences. So, fortunately, I haven't had to do that for the home inspection business. Marketing, now that's dynamic. It's very dynamic because we have to get out there and get personable. Okay, we have to meet agents, and as the old saying goes, you got to shake some hands and kiss some babies. It takes effort. But the cool thing about marketing versus trying to figure out where to put your Google ad campaign and stuff like that is that when you're marketing, your target market is way more identifiable and much easier to reach. Because you're not following somebody else's perceived set of rules about how it should go. You get to set your own rules because you know exactly who you're going after, and that's real people who influence decisions. And who are the people that influence decisions? Well, our target audience, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the influence, that's real estate agents. And I think we all know that. So what do we say? How do we say it? And where do we go from there? Well, let's take a look at what Mark Twain said about using the right words before we get into advertising information. Excuse me. Mark Twain wrote this statement in a letter dated October 15th, 1888. So that's nearly 140 years ago. It amazes me how it's still relevant today. I believe he really understood the human condition better than most of us do today. So the difference between the almost right word and the right word is the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. Take a couple of minutes to think that one through. The difference between the almost right word and the right word is the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. So almost right and right seem pretty close together. Lightning bug and the lightning, well, if you pardon the pun, light years apart. So whether we're discussing marketing or advertising, precision and efficiency are critical factors. Now, this Twain quote is all about the precision. In our world, small differences in wording create big outcome differences. So, for example, cheap inspection attracts the wrong client. If you're going to use the words like cheap inspection, yeah, you're probably not going to get the kind of client that you want. Cheap always implies poor quality. Doesn't always imply cost savings to everybody. But if you use phrases like thorough inspection that protects your investment, well, that attracts the right client. So whether we're talking about your website ad copy, and that's all the wonderful things that you put on the website, your phone script for when people call to book an inspection, or conversations that you're having with agents, tiny word changes change perceived value. So we don't just do advertising as home inspectors. We have to learn to communicate precise and intentional value through that advertising. And choosing the right words is a key part. So here's the heart of it. Here's a quote from Peter Drucker. The aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service fits him and it sells itself. He was a management consultant, educator, and an author. I'm sure you guys can look him up online and learn more about Peter Drucker. So understand the customer so well the service fits him and it sells itself. When we think about it, we kind of already have that with our buyers, don't we? You know, we know they want confidence. We know they want a good, thorough, quality home inspection. We know that they want the information before we can even come up with it because there's that nervous tension. You know, they want the immediate results. However, agents, they want something a little bit different. Agents want smooth transactions and fewer surprises. And sellers, they want fewer renegotiation shocks. Let's kind of delve into that just a little bit. In the book that I'm going to share with you guys a little bit later, it's called Split Down the Middle, I talk about the difference between the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. Okay. Now, as I stated in the book, you know, the whole concept that we process emotion with the right hemisphere of the brain and logic with the left has been debunked, you know, through modern technology. Yeah, there's not a whole lot more going on one side of the brain than the other. But what can't be ignored are the character traits of the extreme right or the extreme left brain person. And when you talk about real estate agents versus home inspectors, the differences become pretty clear. Okay, real estate agents are over in the right hemisphere of the brain. They process everything through that right hemisphere, through the filter of emotion, everybody's feelings, and you know, they're the kind of person, you know, stay up late, get up at noon, you know, go in the office at 2 and start the workday, swinging from the chandeliers kind of a person. Home inspectors, on the other hand, we're extreme left brain. You know, logic, reason. We judge others by their ability to get the job done. You know, we judge ourselves by our own ability to get the job done. We judge others by how much knowledge do they have, how many certification badges do they have from InterNACHI on their webpage, that sort of thing. That's really important to us. And so you could say that home inspectors and real estate agents are complete polar opposites. Complete polar opposites, because we filter everything through logic and reason. We show up, if we say we're going to be there at 8, we get there at 7:30. Real estate agents, as long as I'm there within 45 minutes or so of the appointment time, I'm good. So, and that's a hard world to live in. I don't want to go too far into it, but it's almost like marriage. Because opposites tend to attract. And I don't think there's a better example, other than marriage, of polar opposites than real estate agents and home inspectors. And yet, we have to somehow find a way to work together. So, once we understand how that right brain works, then we can start to learn how to use our own right-hand brain, so that we can have that sense of empathy, if not sympathy, for the agent, their condition, and the transaction. Now, I'm not implying that we should be marketing our services to agents and sellers and promising we're not going to find problems. What I'm saying is that when we understand everyone's expectations, even the sellers and the real estate agents on both sides of the transaction, we're far more effective when we're marketing. If we can demonstrate that understanding, we can do a much better job, and we can earn the agent's trust a lot faster. Okay? So when talking to agents, for example, we need to describe how we make their job easier. We do that with a thorough report. We do it with excellent communication skills in non-alarming terminology. We do it with a report that's easy to read, well illustrated, and we do it right away. I know that there's more and more home inspectors over the last 30 years I've seen are starting to do the on-site reports more than ever before, which is pretty amazing. Which I know for a fact, agents love that. Agents love it when they can get the report without having to wait. And more home inspectors are doing it. That's demonstrating an understanding of their world. They've got a finite period of time to get the transaction negotiated. If I can do a good, thorough home inspection, do a great job for my client, and I can make the agent happy by giving them the report, that's a win-win. And that's how we earn their trust. That's how we earn the referrals. So the key takeaway here is that we don't market to the agents the process. What we market are the outcomes. How's the client going to feel after the home inspection is done? Are they going to feel more confident moving forward with the transaction? Or do they feel confident knowing what direction they have to go next? What are the next best steps? Or they have less confidence, they're more nervous because they have no idea what's coming next, or they're afraid that the house is going to fall apart on them. And for agents, they have the confidence knowing that within an hour or so after the inspection, that they're going to get a copy of the report, they're going to be able to review it with the client, they're going to be able to move to the next phase of the negotiations. That's clarity, it's confidence, and it's fewer unpleasant surprises rather for the client after the closing. And that's what we're after in the marketing. I'm not suggesting that anyone needs to change their business model about the way they do their inspections. Just find a way to take the business model that you have and make it more appealing to the real estate agents through that level of understanding of what their world is like. And to be perfectly honest, so many industries have already figured this out. There are so many industries out there like insurance, personal injury attorneys, and real estate. They've blended branding and advertising with relationship marketing. A great example is my new insurance agent. Okay, so before I switched policies this year, he called me every week. I reached out to him and a couple of others. I felt it was about time to start shopping the policy and make sure I understood what was out there. And he called me every week. He wanted to ask me if I needed anything else to make a decision. And whenever I had a question, he made himself available to me, either through email, phone, or his assistant when he went on vacation. If I called with questions, he had the answers. And if he didn't have the answer right away, he said, well, I'll find out and I'll get back to you. And after we bought that new policy, I started receiving emails that educate me on how my policy works, what risk management is all about, and inviting me to call, whenever I have a question down the road with a policy. And he regularly uses many of these key terms that you see on the screen: branding, trust, quality, integrity, loyalty. See, that's relationship building. And that's somebody who understands their business and understands my business, and that's somebody that I want to work with. Okay? And sometimes, and I'm sure there are a few of you out there who could attest to this, sometimes if it's just a little bit more expensive, but the service is light years better than what you've been getting, it's worth the extra few bucks, isn't it? So we, home inspectors, should do the same with the real estate agents. Branding words like trust, quality, integrity, and loyalty, they're not fluff. Although our left-hand brain sometimes tells us, well, that's a bunch of BS, man. That's just stupid. They should just call me because they know I'm a good inspector. You know, that's true, and I totally agree with that. However, real estate agents don't. They got to feel good about it. They have to know you. They have to like you. They have to trust you, and that's how they're going to feel good about it. So we've got to use these words. We've got to use these terms. We have to convince them that we're confident enough in ourselves to describe ourselves as having a high level integrity and that we are loyal. And without that, without seeing the confidence in us and ourselves, the agents aren't going to have confidence in us. So that means that, the blended strategy, if you will, is to use advertising to look credible. That's important. We make ourselves findable with the advertising. But we use marketing, especially relationships, to become preferred and referred. Okay? People like to choose their service provider when there's less uncertainty. So the next distinction that I want to talk about, internet versus face-to-face. Why is one better than the other? Is one better than the other? Which one should I do more? And I realized, a few years ago that the market was changing, and I thought it was kind of an interesting case study when COVID hit a few years back. And all of a sudden, we couldn't go to real estate offices. We couldn't do office presentations anymore. I couldn't go into the office and say, hi, I want to drop this stuff off, because anything that came out of my hands was certainly tainted with the worst virus man has ever seen, and everybody in the office was going to get the plague, so doors are locked, can't go anywhere. And that was kind of a scary time. And it was interesting to see how so many businesses and how so many people adapted to those few years where we had the lockdown, and it was really tough to get out and get business done. And I saw a lot of home inspectors going out there and working that social media angle pretty hard, tweaking their SEO optimization on their website. And I know a few guys right here locally, and by the way, I'm in Vancouver, Washington, if anybody's interested, which is right across the river from Portland, Oregon. So right here in the Portland and Vancouver market, I saw a lot of guys doing a lot of that work as a means to survive. And I guess you could call it mother necessity. And they had a lot of really good results with it. And why did it work so well? Well, it worked well because there was no other option. There was no other option out there for anybody to go out and meet agents face-to-face the old-fashioned way. So everybody had to switch to the digital world, and still things were getting done. Home inspectors were still doing home inspections. Real estate agents were still selling homes. Couldn't find any open houses anywhere for a while, and if you did, you had to show up in a Tyvek suit with the duct tape and the rubber gloves and all that good stuff just to walk through a house. So the only option was social media and the internet. Well, that started to wane. Just a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, that's when, I noticed a lot of guys are like, yeah, business is tough. We've been doing a social media thing. We've been doing the advertising on the internet. We've been tweaking the SEO optimization, but we're not getting the kind of results we were getting a couple of years ago. And, there were a lot of things kicked around out there about, okay, well, it's the markets, it's the interest rates, it's inflation, it's this or that. The truth is, though, that's when Becky and I, my wife and I, we about 4 or 5 years ago, we came off the road. I was actually just on the road full-time teaching for many years. We came home back to Vancouver to start our own school and the home inspection business. And I went out, and it was very interesting because this was 4.5 years ago. I went out and I started doing all the stuff I'm going to be telling you guys about. Visiting the offices, doing the office presentations, going to the open houses because they were starting to happen again. And the agents were amazed that somebody would walk into the office and say hello and say, I've got some brochures and business cards here. Hey, by the way, who's the sales manager? Who's your managing broker? We'd like to do an office presentation, sponsor breakfast. And we were welcomed with open arms. It's like, yeah, trying to find somebody to do this stuff is like pulling teeth. Yes, please come in. And we started to do business right away. Of course, I knew that was possible. I'd just only been on the road for 5 years, and I've done this many times before for the last 30. I knew it was going to work. I just wasn't ready for such a positive reception. Usually it was a little bit more work. And I started getting business right away, doing several inspections a week, and other home inspectors saying, well, gee, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm just doing what I've always done. Well, what are you doing with your SEO? What are you doing with your email campaign and all that? So, well, we do some of that, but I'm still just getting out there, getting FaceTime with the agents. And it worked. So the whole COVID thing kind of pushed us towards that digital world. But I think we've been pulled back out of it because of the nature of what real estate agents do. It's a relationship-oriented business, okay? The internet is a powerful tool, and don't get me wrong, it's very powerful, but it does a specific job, okay? Where face-to-face does a very different job. And when you treat the internet as your entire strategy, you end up competing basically on price and search ranking. But there's no value to that. When you treat the internet as support for relationships, though, that's how you build long-term referral flow for your business. Use the internet, the web page, to support everything that you're out there talking to agents about in your face-to-face marketing. Think of the internet, and if some of you don't know what the yellow pages were, look them up. They really kind of disappeared, about 20, 25 years ago with the onset of the internet. But I hate to admit it, but I'm old enough to remember the yellow pages because I had to put 2 of them on my little brother's seat so he could sit up to the table and eat dinner every night. I want you to think of the internet right now, just as an analogy, like the old yellow pages, just an upgraded version of the old yellow pages, because that's exactly what it is. It's an upgraded version of the yellow pages. When we're in business, our target audience expects us to have a professional online presence, okay? Just like the old days when we used to pick up the yellow pages. If they're a halfway decent business, they're going to be in the yellow pages. Whether I needed somebody to fix the radiator on the car or come and replace all the tubes in the back of the TV set, and that was just a shout out to all of you Gen Xers and older out there. People expect us to have that professional online presence. It's our digital brochure. It makes us available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Reviews, testimonials, they're especially important because they provide evidence before purchase. In a service business, however, I shouldn't say however, but I mean in a service business, you can't put much more weight on the importance of those reviews. And I know that a lot of you guys like it, or that we lean on it all the time. Reviews, peer reviews are probably the most powerful tool that we have on the internet. And that was one thing that we couldn't get with the yellow pages, a whole list of people who said, yeah, I've used this business and they're good. Okay, but the site itself, the website itself, is still just simply advertising. It's digital, it's more colorful, it's a little more active than the old yellow pages were, or, a static billboard might be these days. It's page design, it's ad copy, and it's search engine optimization, and hopefully all of that leads to organic growth. Okay, we need the key elements in place on the website so when someone checks us out, whether it's a client or an agent, we look credible, clear, and professional. It's an important tool. So I'm not trying to downplay the importance of the internet. As a matter of fact, I do want to just give a quick shout out to the whole InterNACHI SEO for Home Inspector webinar. I attended it back in, I think it was November of 23. It went for 6 weeks. Ben Gromyko provided a wealth of information regarding not just search engine optimization, but how to build a proper website that's engaging and supportive of in-person marketing campaigns. I was really pleased, to have the chance to go through that, and I learned a lot myself. As a matter of fact, after going through that, I made a few changes in my own website based on what I learned from that class. So I highly recommend it as a companion to any home inspector's overall marketing strategy training. Okay, we can all really benefit from that. But that said, websites and SEO are only one piece of the puzzle. Advertising without marketing makes for a much longer road to success. Marketing without advertising makes for a longer road to success. Why? Well, the reason that advertising takes longer is because it's so hard to build that trust with static advertising alone. So here's what I mean. It begins with knowing your target audience. Now, for us, for home inspectors, that's buyers, sellers, new construction home buyers. But your audience, your target audience, also includes the influencers. And these are the people who directly influence your audience. That's agents, mortgage reps, title agents, people who interact with those clients at the critical decision-making time. Marketing is building relationships with the influencer group. That's real estate agents, mostly real estate agents. So your name comes out of their mouth naturally. Now here's a quick question every home inspector should ask themselves. Who sends me the majority of my best work right now. Now, I don't doubt that many of you are thinking of 2 or 3 agents that just come to mind, or maybe even just the most recent agent that called you. But I don't doubt that everyone's thinking of at least 1 or 2 real estate agents. That's our targeted group of influencers. The answer tells us, when we have it, where to invest our marketing hours. Okay, so if it's the agents that are referring us, then it's the agents we need to target. Okay, targeting the best possible audience consistently leads to what advertisers call top of mind awareness. And top of mind awareness achieving top of mind awareness requires market penetration through relationships with influencers who have high levels of engagement with their targeted client. Okay, so our targeted client is the home buyer, but more of our targeted audience are the influencers, the real estate agents who are in a position to refer them. Okay, and in order to get market penetration and to get that top of mind awareness, in other words, when somebody says home inspection, somebody thinks of you first. That's top of mind awareness. We have to have relationships with that targeted group. And this is the number one strategy for any business. For service businesses like ours, it comes from relationships with influenced real estate agents who have high engagement with the target client because they have repeated exposure to buyers and sellers. They're asked for those recommendations constantly. And when we win agent trust, we shorten the time it takes to grow when they think of us first. So the fastest path to business volume isn't more clicks, it's more trusted relationships. And some of you might be asking, okay, well, how do we do that? How do I build more relationships? How do I improve these relationships? How do I get out there and get the face time that you're talking about? Well, let's slow the pace down just a little bit, because relationship building, what I want to talk about first is that it's not, it's a skill. It's not a personality trait. And I've heard that so many times, because I've been teaching prospective home inspectors, many of whom have actually gone on to become very successful home inspectors over the last, 23 years now. And of course, I've seen that left brain mindset in class over and over and over again. And I'm not criticizing it because I deeply respect the extreme left brain. I'm one of those people myself. Well, at least until I learn how to use the other half of my brain. But relationship building, it doesn't necessarily have to be a personality trait. It's a skill that we can learn. It's a skill that takes a little bit of practice, but it's just like anything else. You work the muscle's going to develop, it's going to grow, it's going to get stronger. Okay, and I want everyone to know that to be successful in marketing, we don't have to be extroverts. Yeah, it seems to come naturally to some people, which, believe me, 30 years ago, if you'd have met me, you'd have probably voted me least likely to succeed in my own class. In fact, I think there was a vote, and I think that's what I won. Least likely to succeed as a home inspector. I didn't have the personality. I didn't have anything but technical aptitude. I mean, I was an insurance agent. I didn't know the difference between a hot and a neutral wire. But what I had was the capacity to learn. What I had was an open mind and a willingness to give anything a try to be successful at it. We just need to be confident, and we need to be consistent in that confidence. So that's how we build the skill. Relationships are built through repeated positive contact. Being helpful, being present. Whoops, sorry about that. Dang it, I lost my place. I'm sorry, guys. Here we go. There we go. I'm sorry. Repeated positive contact, helpful, present, following through, and staying visible in a non-annoying way. And when we do that, we become familiar to the agents. Familiarity becomes trust. Trust becomes referred. So let me repeat that. We become familiar to the agents, and familiar becomes trusted. Trusted becomes referred. That's what we're after. So how do we do that? How do we accomplish it? And, how do we do it without being the natural? Okay. Well, trust, it's difficult to build online. It can be done. It just takes longer. People are going to be more hesitant to choose your business if all they have is a digital page on a screen to look at. Websites, they become easy to build with a quality professionalized look. No two ways about it. But it's actually kind of becoming routine. It's almost like flipping through the old yellow pages. even the people with the most creative ads aren't standing out because everybody's got a creative ad. So everybody's got a pretty decent website out there. Everybody's got pretty much all the same things on their website. And agents, well, they build trust with their clients face-to-face, in person, over time. Okay? So even though you might have a great website, the client has a strong relationship with the agent, and that trust with the agent transfers. So when the agent makes a recommendation, it holds a much higher, position in the mind's eye of the client when they're choosing a home inspector, because, well, yeah, this guy's got a great website, this guy's saying all the right things over here, but the agent recommended this person. They're going to choose, like Elon Musk said, the trusted brand every single time. So our number one goal should be to build that relationship of trust with the agents. And agents, I mean, let's face it, I think we all know this. Agents are the most qualified to recommend home inspectors because they see the outcomes. They've got the communication, the professionalism, the report clarity, how issues are handled. They know how to pick and choose the home inspectors based on the kind of client they have. So our relationship with the agent often determines how fast we succeed. And if you want to ramp up quickly, you've got to build agent trust, and you got to do it very intentionally. And how do you do that? Well, there's three things. You demonstrate your communication skills. We all know that agents hate alarming home inspectors. And of course, home inspectors say, I'm not alarming, I'm just objective. But many of us have found that middle of the road, haven't we? We've found that fine line that we can walk. So we have to demonstrate that. We have to show the agents that we know how to talk to the client without unnecessarily scare them out of buying the house. We have to build rapport with the agents. We have to stay in touch. And demonstrating skills while marketing could be something as simple as a short presentation at an office meeting, a helpful tip, a calm explanation of a common defect, or how you protect the client experience when you're out there on the home inspection. Demonstrate those skills. That's how you earn the trust. And rapport, that's pretty simple. Be respectful, be reliable, and understand the agent's world. And staying in touch, that's huge. That's the key to longevity. Okay? Some inspectors tend to lose here. I've seen some home inspectors do it over the years. They lose here not because they're bad at marketing, but because they become invisible. They go out, they do a one-time hit, they say hello to the agents, they impress the agents, and they get a lot of, yeah, I'll use you next time, I'll use you next time, and 2 months go by and they haven't heard from anybody. Why? They didn't follow up. They became invisible. We can't be invisible in this business because follow-up is where the business is won. That first contact rarely produces a relationship with an agent. Now remember, you're not trying to close a sale, okay? You're trying to earn familiarity over time. Follow-up is professional persistence, not annoyance. It's an important element of gaining top-of-mind awareness. If you want a simple measure, let me ask everyone a rhetorical question here. If you met 10 new agents this month, could you tell me exactly when and how you'll touch base with each one next month? If not, if you don't immediately have an answer for, yeah, here's how I would contact every single one of them next month, well, then this is the leak in your strategic ship on an ocean of opportunity. So how do we do this? How do we stay connected? Well, you do both, in person and online. Office visits, office presentations, email, phone, agent events, tours, and of course social media posts. Notice the mix here. Some are quick touches, some are deeper value moments, okay? And the goal isn't to pester. I've found and heard many years ago that, staying in touch once every 3 weeks, just a quick reminder every 3 weeks, and then maybe every quarter a more deeper interaction with the agent is just about right without being a pest. The goal is to be constantly helpful and visible, but not annoying. And a simple rhythm could be, light touch every few weeks, like every 3 weeks. Value touch monthly, like maybe a newsletter or a quick phone call to an agent that you recently met. Deep value contact quarterly, an office presentation at their office, getting involved at one of the charity events, getting involved at the local MLS. Get out there and do those deep touches, where you're meeting agents so that they're seeing your skill set at least once every 3 months and hearing about you about every 3 weeks. And consistency is what beats the intensity. It doesn't have to be super intense. It doesn't have to be, hey, I'm a home inspector, you ought to use me because look how wonderful I am. No, we don't have to do that. Consistency beats the intensity. And what I want to discuss for the remainder of the webinar, what little time we have left, is accomplishing those value moments. So let's get practical. Here are the big three face-to-face marketing activities that I found in my 30 years as a home inspector build relationships faster than just about anything else. And even coming out of COVID, when I could have just sat down at the computer and done the social media thing and tweaked the SEO optimization to get the home inspection business back up and running, I actually chose to go out and do these big three things instead. And guess what? We started doing inspections right away. They accomplish all three. There's light touching, there's light touch, there's value added, and of course there's a deeper contact moments. If you want to streamline your marketing plan, anchor it right here. These activities build incredible confidence for inspectors and agents, confidence in the inspector, because for us, we can measure them. How many of these events did I do? Who did I meet? What follow-up was scheduled? And ultimately, how many times did the phone ring with an appointment as a direct result of each one of these activities? And I know we all know how to do that. It's not that hard to put it into your schedule software, whatever it is that you're using, to say, I met this agent at this marketing activity, and then run a quick report and see where you're getting the best results. Okay, so here are your big three. There's office visits, there's open houses, and there's the agent events. Okay, and I've been doing all three throughout my career, and like I said earlier, and they still work. As a matter of fact, my wife and I, we have to be very careful about how much marketing we do. We don't want to do too much marketing because we're also running a school. And when I'm teaching a class, I hate turning down agents. We know exactly how many inspections a year that we want to do, as opposed to how many students that we want to get, and how does that meet our financial goals. And in order to get this many inspections, we got to do this many open houses, we got to do this many office presentations, and we got to do this many charity events and MLS events throughout the year. And if we're doing these things, we're maintaining a steady flow. If we do any more, we might get more business than we can handle, because we got to turn them down because I'm teaching a class or something like that. Okay, so because we track everything so efficiently, we know how much marketing we have to do each month, and that keeps our steady pace of inspections between the classes. And office visits, that's where we go to visit the offices. We leave flyers, brochures, business cards. We chat with any agents who might be there, as long as we're not, bugging them. And it's where we establish the relationship. We just introduce ourselves, we establish our presence, say hello, nice to meet you. Here's a couple of key things about us, quick introduction, short value, and then try to find a reason to follow up later. Now, open houses, that's one of my favorites, because it's always on the weekend. Everybody's always in a good mood. Well, most of the time they're in a good mood, unless the agent's been sitting there for 6 hours and they haven't gotten anybody to even show up yet. They might be a little bit cranky. But that's where we build some of our best relationships, because we meet agents in their work environment, and we support them while they're engaging their buyers. Now, no, if they're talking to clients and stuff like that, no, I'm not gonna bug them. We'll leave and circle back around to that house later. So no, I'm not gonna be a pest while I'm out there. But most of the time we walk in, they're happy to see us, and I can't tell you how many times agents have told us, wow, this is so amazing. I've never seen anybody, come out and market any kind of business to an agent at open house. That's a really smart thing to do. And events like charity events, office presentations, home tours, and other in-office activities, those help to maintain the relationship, okay? Because shared experiences deepen the trust faster than the casual touches. So in between all of this, there's building the relationship. There are the quick touches, the quick emails, the quick follow-up phone call. And remember to ask questions and get to know the agent and build a little bit of rapport with them. And that goes a long way to create that sense of familiarity and trust. So I want you to think of these three events as a pipeline to establish, build, and maintain relationships with real estate agents. Now, my calendar consistently reflects these three core activities, and it has for the last 30 some odd years. And I know when I'm getting out there and I'm getting that face time, my business volume is going to grow and it becomes steadier. It's ultimately more predictable that way as well. Consistent marketing always gets us consistent results. Now, we don't have time in a 1-hour webinar to bring you the fine art of accomplishing these activities, okay? But I'm sure everyone here is already kind of familiar with them. And in a few minutes, I'll be sharing a great resource for you that you can tap into. It's going to teach you everything that you need to know to make these activities work for your business. But in the few minutes we have left, I want to maximize our time together, and I want to help everyone understand how to get themselves motivated and ready to start down the road to real results. And it all starts with having the right attitude. And I know that sounds kind of cliche. I spent many years in corporate America. Attitude determines your altitude and all that other stuff. But you know what? Although it's been overutilized and become a cliche, it's still true. It starts with having the right attitude. Marketing success is as much a mindset as it is tactics. Now, most inspectors know what to do. They just don't do it consistently because it feels awkward to do it. We overthink it, or we wait until business is slow before we get started. Now, let's shift that paradigm just a little bit. Marketing is part of the job. It's a proactive activity. It's not something we do only when we have time. Now remember, you're not begging for work. You got to get rid of that stinking thinking. You're building professional relationships that help agents serve their clients better. Okay, so we're not begging for work. We're building relationships to help agents help their clients. And here's a really good priority filter. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen on the news, in the last year or so, it seems to be a new catchphrase. Oh, that's a 90-10 issue. That's a 95-5 issue. That's a 70-30 issue. Well, they've been saying it a lot lately. Well, that's a twist on a really well-known concept that actually dates back to corporate America back in the 1980s, and it's called the 80-20 rule. Now, where in all of this 90-10 stuff that they talk about comes from, it's the 80-20 rule, and it says that a small set of actions drive the biggest results. And for you and I, that's marketing. And in other words, we want to spend our time focused on tasks that represent 80% importance. And for any home inspection business, the highest value actions are relationship building activities, because one strong referral relationship can produce steady inspections for years to come. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, am I spending my marketing time on the handful of tasks that produce the best results? See, a lot of people, especially many whom I supervised back in my corporate America days, mistakenly spend 80% of their time on items of only 20% importance. Now, in the corporate world, that's rearranging the paper clips and the binder clips and keeping the pens hidden from everybody in the office supply closet. For home inspectors, there's also busy work. We've got tinkering around with logos, endless website tweaks, social media posting, and business admin stuff that we have to do. And yeah, these tasks have to be done. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying, oh yeah, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Well, I'm not. I'm just saying that those are 20% importance items. Okay? They got to be done, dedicate the time, but only give them the 20% importance that they deserve. Because, again, another question we got to ask ourselves, does tinkering around with my logo and coming up with more social media, creative social media posts, do they really drive the majority of our business? And I say no. Successful business owners spend 80% of their time on items that are of 80% importance. And that's where I try to live every single day, is what I'm working on, 80% importance. I've got dedicated time, to do the 20% stuff. It's always on the calendar. I know what time of the week I got to get it done. But I try it every day when I sit down or I get out to do a home inspection and I'm coming back from the home inspection. Okay, what's the next 80% thing that I can do? Okay, relationships, follow-up, systems, delivering a consistently excellent client experience. That's what I'm always focused on. And let this slide be a gut check for you. If you want growth, then your time has to match your priorities. It's always been my philosophy that the most important thing I can be doing is a home inspection because, well, let's face it, that's what earns income, right? Well, therefore, the second most important activity I can be doing is getting more inspections. But when I first started out many years ago, the most important thing I could be doing is going out there and getting home inspections because I didn't have any yet. So I spent 80% of my time marketing. And gradually, that started to shift. Okay, started doing more home inspections, doing less marketing, more home inspections, less marketing. And now, we're at the point where I'm spending 80% of my time either doing home inspections, developing or delivering curriculum, and only 20% of my time marketing. But I make sure that I spend that 20% of my time doing the marketing because it is of 80% importance. Okay. Now, I know SEO optimization supports my face-to-face marketing. Okay. So I need to spend 80% of the time marketing, 20% working on the website if I'm just getting started. And I kind of have to break it down into smaller chunks too, because, when I get really busy, I'm doing 300, 400, 500 inspections a year. Well, I don't have 80% of my time to dedicate to marketing. So I got to take that 20% and divide that up into smaller chunks and do the 80-20 rule there. Because 80% of my time is actually spent being productive and earning a paycheck, but I still have to prioritize that 20% into an 80-20 category. We go into that in the book. It's a formula that works. And I've been applying that to my career even since before I became a home inspector. So here's where excuses go to die, in a good way. We often allow myths and misconceptions to cloud our thinking, okay? And I call it stinking thinking. Somebody told me that many years ago. It includes thoughts or phrases like, well, marketing takes too long, or people should just call me because I'm a good home inspector, and my website tells everyone all they need to know, so why do I have to go out there and say more of it? Well, the problem with these myths, other than being false, is that, as we've learned, trust is what matters the most. And without that face-to-face interaction, agents aren't going to learn to trust that our claims are true. Okay? They can see them on a page, but everybody's got that on their website. You need to go out and demonstrate it to people. Find the agents who are going to be in tune with your personality, your communication style, and demonstrate that for them, and that's where you build the long-term relationships. So set aside the myths. You know, I challenge everyone. If you haven't tried this or you think you've tried it and you say, this is a bunch of BS, not going to work, okay, just set them aside. Just give it one shot. Set aside the myths, develop the skills, develop a plan of action, you know, with the list of 80% activities that you could do. Follow through. Check the items off the list when you get them done. And tell me it didn't work. Most of the awkwardness about marketing disappears with repetition. After all, repetition's the mother of skill. Confidence, that comes from doing. Your first office visit feels awkward. Your 10th feels pretty normal. By the time you've done 30, it's super easy. See, the goal is not perfection, though. It's momentum. Okay? So set aside the myths and put yourself to work and give it the best absolute shot you can. So to put it all in perspective here for you, I know the idea is getting out there, doing the marketing. It can be a little bit intimidating, especially for newer home inspectors. There's a story that I've been hearing for many years. It's about a little girl. I don't know, it's get-together family dinner on a Sunday. And she's in the kitchen, and mom's preparing the ham for dinner. She cuts the ends off the ham, puts them in the pot, sticks the roasting pot in the oven. Little girl says, Mommy, why do you cut the ends off the ham every time you cook the ham? And her mother says, well, sweetie, your mother, my mother did it, your grandmother, she did it that way, and her hams were always delicious and juicy and just perfect. So she does it that way, so I do it that way. And well, why did Grandma cut the ends off the ham? Well, I don't know. Maybe you could go out to the living room and ask Grandma. Little girl goes out there to the living room and says, Grandma, Mommy says that she cuts the ends off the ham before she puts it in the roaster because you did it. Why did you cut the ends off the ham? Grandma says, well, I don't know why your mother does it. I had to do it because my pot was too small. So Einstein once said, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And this is a classic lesson. Oops, sorry about that. Hit the mouse again. Classic lesson. People repeat patterns without remembering why they started to begin with or what worked about it. I mean, if you always do what you always did, well, you know the rest. Okay? Curiosity and critical thinking, however, and that's what this story demonstrates, is critical thought. That leads to innovation. And for inspectors, it means questioning assumptions. Do I really need more ads, or do I need better relationships? Do I need more leads, or do I need better conversion? So like Einstein was saying, different actions create different results. And speaking of actions, where can we all go to learn all these skills outside a 1-hour webinar? Well, I'm going to point you to a resource here for deeper development. If you want to accelerate your growth, then invest in learning how agents think, how value is communicated to agents, and how to run specific, repeatable marketing activities without being intimidated. Now, this book is especially helpful if you want scripts, presentations, and a proven system that you can follow instead of guessing. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You only need to implement a proven approach. Now, a couple of years ago, I was building an online marketing course for my students here at High Tech. Now, a couple of hundred PowerPoint slides turned into a workbook, and that workbook turned into a reference manual, and that ultimately became a textbook. Now, I promise you guys, this is not a poorly written, elongated testimony to my ego. I spent nearly a year writing and editing this book and having it professionally edited. I put 30 plus years of experience marketing home inspections into it, and a few other of the businesses that I've been involved in over the years. We wanted to deliver to our students something that one day in class could never do, a cohesive, proven system that gets results every time. So the result was split down the middle, tapping into both hemispheres of the brain for successful marketing of any home inspection business. Let's quickly talk about what the book can do for you, and then we'll wrap this up. Now, in Split Down the Middle, you learn not only everything I've been doing for 30 years, but you learn what my most successful students have been doing in their businesses. First, you can understand agents, branding, building value, relationship building, and personal productivity. All the things that we've talked about tonight. Second, the reader's going to learn advertising materials, writing ad copy, website basics, search engine optimization, measuring your results, booking the appointment, and word-for-word presentations, goal setting, handling complaints, and calculating event value. That is, tying the event to the results that you get. How much did it cost? How much am I making every time I go and do one of these events? And finally, you'll learn the art of performance. Now, this book gives you exactly what to say at the office visits, at the sales meeting presentations, and open house visits without the stress. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot less stress when you go into a marketing situation when you already know what to say. Wouldn't you agree? We also include specific marketing plans, and we even know even how to accomplish a little marketing even for every single inspection that you do. So marketing on the home inspection is also included, and that's the roadmap from knowledge to skill and then action. Now, case in point, I have a student who took our 120-hour home inspection fundamentals class in March of last year, 25. He passed his exam, he got licensed, and he started his business in August of 2025. Now, in between, he read Split Down the Middle, cover to cover. And now, just a few months later, he's already doing 4 to 5 inspections per week. And he tells me it's because he's doing exactly what I taught him in the book. Because, you know, I called him, or he called me up a few months ago, and I said, so how's it going? He says, well, I'm doing about 4 or 5 inspections a week. Not quite where I wanted to be. I said, Jim, you've been doing this for 4 months, and you're already at 4 or 5 inspections a week? That's phenomenal. I said, what are you doing? He says, what do you mean? I said, well, what are you doing to get those kind of results? He says, I don't understand. He says, I just read your book. I'm just doing what's in the book. Okay? So it does work. It's good stuff. And as we wrap this up, in a service business, I'm sure we can all agree that one skill upgrade can pay for itself very quickly. So let's talk about investing wisely. The question isn't what does it cost, but what does it return? If a resource helps you confidently do office visits, present without fear, create repeatable follow-up, the payoff is massive. So think of training and marketing skills as leverage, not expenses. Now, I'm reinforcing the idea here. Pricing is simple, but value is the real question. If you're currently doing marketing inconsistently, a structured system that you can learn from the book can compress years of trial and error into just a few short weeks. And the reason I'm comfortable saying that is because I and many of my students see every single week how this marketing results in consistent business volume. It comes from acting consistently, not from vague inspiration or just guesswork. So there we go. So here's the math. Now, these skills are going to bring you many more than just one home inspection. Just make it, okay, it's showing up on the screen. Sorry about that. Because you learn how to establish, build, and maintain relationships, okay? Even if all you accomplish after reading this book is one relationship, that could produce as many as 10 to 15 inspections a year. And that's real revenue. At 15 inspections, and let's say the average is $450. Well, that's $6,750 gross revenue from one relationship. At 15 inspections, $450, $6,700, that's a multiplier of 75. So the book pays for itself 75 times over when you just get one relationship from it. One good relationship can outperform a lot of random advertising. Trust me on this one. So, just for the InterNACHI members, to wrap it up, we put the book on sale on Amazon just this week only. Okay, we don't have the ability to give out coupons. I actually have to go in there and say, no, let's put it on sale for X number of days. So it's gone on sale from $129.95 to $89.95 just for the attendees. The sale, and it's Kindle or paperback, by the way, the sale ends this Sunday. And of course, we offer a money-back guarantee. You can get the details from the website that's listed on the screen in front of you. And our guarantee is simply to reduce your risk. If you invest in something and it doesn't deliver value, then you shouldn't be stuck. Okay? The guarantee is simple. Make the effort. Show us that you did. And when it doesn't work, we'll refund your money. Now, the bigger point is this. Don't be afraid to invest in learning new marketing skills. If you're good at inspections, but maybe a little weak at marketing, or maybe you're really good at marketing, but there's a few skills that you can take from this book. Well, if you have any kind of limitations like that, then you have a growth ceiling. And we want to help you lift that ceiling. Because when marketing improves, everything improves. Schedule stability, pricing confidence, and stress level. You can use the QR code that you see on the screen. It'll take you directly to Amazon where the book is available. So let's recap the big picture. Face-to-face marketing gets results because it builds trust. Websites and internet advertising support face-to-face marketing efforts. They make you findable and credible when people check you out. Printed materials also support marketing because they reinforce professionalism. To this day, it still kind of surprised me. Some people are actually surprised when I hand them a business card. When you combine them, they work synergistically. If you want a simple strategy, build relationships first and make sure your online presence supports those relationships. So, thank you everybody for your time today. If you want help implementing any of this, office visit rhythms, open house strategy, follow-up systems, improving your online digital brochure, reach out anytime. My contact information is on the screen. And thanks again. Until the next time I see you, keep describing what you see and telling them what to do about it.